name's Charlotte Aynsley, and as Stephen says, I am FOSI's EU and UK policy consultant. You can tell by my British accent that I'm from the UK. I'm delighted to kick us off today with our first panel, which is going to talk about all things digital parenting. I'm going to hand over to my esteemed colleagues to introduce themselves before we get started. So, Elizabeth, do you want to start?
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay? Is it working? Ah, yeah. Hi, Elizabeth Combe, Director of COFACE Families Europe. We're based in Brussels. We have a secretariat in Brussels, and we have 50-plus member organizations across 23 countries, and these organizations are family organizations, all types of families without discrimination, and we advocate, we shape policy, we do research, and much more. Thank you.
Is it working? Yes, it is. Good morning. I'm Dr. Elizabeth Milovidov. I am here with my digitalparentingcoach.com hat on, which was a website that I created, 2012, I believe, to provide resources for family. I am really happy, despite the American accent, to be back home in Paris, because this is where I've lived for the past 30 years. And I also go on to France 24 once a month for the GD Godula session talking about digital parenting. And one last hat, which I am not representing, but I also work at the Lego Group as Senior Corporate Counsel for Games and Metaverse. And really, all this digital parenting, child safety stuff, this is my jam. I love it.
No, we keep it. Okay, yes. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Pascale Raulin-Serrier. I'm working in Paris, so I don't come from far away. I'm a senior advisor with the CNIL's Digital Education Department. The CNIL is the Data Protection Authority in France. I'm charged with promoting children's rights in the digital environment and also best practices in awareness-raising activities at both national and international levels. And I also work as a member of the Council of Europe's expert group on digital citizenship education, a fantastic program as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Val Ritchie. I'm a father of 3 boys. I also work at TikTok. I lead our outreach and partnerships for trust and safety, and I'm delighted to be here, and many thanks to Liz and the Microsoft crew for hosting us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sure many of you in the audience are also parents and face the daily challenges of trying to manage your children's access online. Ofcom have released their latest data in the UK around children's use of tech, and I think for the first time we had 100% access for children at the age of 16 to smartphones. So we've faced really big challenges, and parents, whoever you talk to, wherever you are, face a lot of these challenges. So we're going to spend the next 40 minutes talking about some of these challenges and the potential solutions. We're going to come to you for questions and the live stream as well, so please do store up your questions, and we will take them from you. We'll allow 5 to 10 minutes of questions at the end. So I'm going to kick off by asking our panel what they think the main challenges are for parents. So we can talk about that individually as a start off. If you want to go first, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much. Look, I think, there are many challenges, but I think in COFACE Families Europe, we like to take a nuanced approach, looking at opportunities as well of technology. And I think the reality is, in Europe today, at least, most households very much have digital technologies, and this impacts the daily lives of people in different ways. So very positive ways. You can do family differently, you can stay in touch, it supports education, leisure, much more. But of course, there are risks, many risks, and the ones which come up, at least in our network, some evidence-based through research, but some through sheer grassroots feedback is, well, clearly cyberbullying comes up a lot. Bullying seems to be an issue everywhere in Europe. Well, let's say harmful content, which shouldn't be there. Child sexual abuse online is being reported a lot. Just misinformation in general. So these are some of the key challenges, but you've also got scams that affect children and their families. So obviously all of that has an impact on children and their families and their well-being, so their physical, mental well-being. Then we have vulnerable families or families who are in vulnerable situations because of, I don't know, it can be due to disability, intellectual disabilities, or due to poverty, discrimination. So, you know, there's the general set of challenges and then maybe extra challenges for specific types of families in vulnerable situations. So.
Yeah, I'm just going to jump right in. I think it's great that that Elizabeth was listing, you know, the harms and a lot of the opportunities. Yeah. But for me, something that I've seen just in the more than 10 years that I've been doing this is a lack of confidence. This seems to me to be the biggest problem, whether, again, with my American hat, I write for FOSI for their good digital parenting. In the UK, I write for Internet Matters. I write for Verizon, for Vodafone. I'm also on the Child Safety Online Task Force for the NSPCC, as well as Common Sense Media UK, their advisory council. The issues are always the same, and these challenges, these risks, they're not going anywhere, and yet we still have not found a way to really, I don't want to say empower because we're all sick of that word, but to really give parents that confidence to, it doesn't matter if it is TikTok or Snapchat or AI, that they can figure it out and that they can understand what to do.
Yes, absolutely. We'll come to that later, really important confidence issue.
Yes. You know, one of the big challenges for parents is acquiring a digital culture. This is a real challenge, and we all need to answer, all the chain of actors. Parents need to be involved in some awareness training initiatives and also develop discussions with their children as well. The parents have the responsibility to set an example for their children on digital devices. That's not so easy. They must also learn to respect the children's privacy gradually and help them become independent online. And also, they have to learn from their children as well, because it's important to create a dialogue between all of them.
I want to pick up 2 points that you just raised because I think they're spot on. The first is that it's hard to be a parent, I think, in this time. So you're not only worried about motivated bad actors like you were just talking about, but you know, as I said, I have 3 boys, and at any time of the day, one of them's trying to steal a device and get on it, and you know, they're crafty and they're not necessarily sharing my objectives about, you know, limited screen time. And so, you know, I'm joking, but it's true. It's difficult. And I think we need to be eyes wide open about the scope of the harms, but we also need to acknowledge the challenge of actually being a parent in that space. So 2 thoughts that I have on that is, one is, I think, digging into the tools that are available is really something parents should try to do. On TikTok, we have a thing called family pairing, which allows parents to link their account to the teen's account, and it gives a whole suite of features to work with, to have a conversation with your teen and to help deal with the experience that you want to create for your family. And we also have a guardian's guide that helps give advice. The second thing I'll say is talk to your teens, right? I mean, we talked to them, and we got some great inputs that we've shared in our app that are things like, help me understand the rules. Don't panic when things go wrong. Like, that's great advice for parenting generally, but you know, be available to chat. I can assure you that my 14-year-old definitely wants to have a deep conversation at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. And, you know, you have to take those moments. So, you know, I think listening to our teens and also digging into the tools and the features that are available on these apps is a great place to start.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to go back to the point that you made, Elizabeth, about confidence, though, because I think a lot of parents view this as a kind of tech job, and it isn't a tech job. So how do we give them the confidence that they need to be able to parent their children online? What can we do?
Yeah, no, I find this question amazing because I remember being in this room in 2014. I met Laura Higgins then, and I remember asking the panel, you know, what's the one thing that parents can do? And I find it absolutely mind-blowing that we're still in the same situation. We still are trying, and despite the plethora of fabulous tools out there on TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, parent guides, which one of them I helped write, parents are not getting this information, and even if they are getting it, they don't really want it in that way. So I think that the challenge is on all of us not to let another 10 years go by before we've really nailed it this time, because we didn't get digital literacy right off the bat, and I was with Pascale on the Council of Europe during the digital citizenship education. We're still struggling there, getting parents, and now we're talking AI literacy. Yeah. So I think we need to just take the tech out so that way parents can really look at their own skills as a parent, as somebody who's trying to raise a human being with empathy and, yeah, another word that we hear all the time, resilience. I mean, we have to get back to the basics. This is something that I've been telling parents every time I meet with them, that if you can get together and decide the end of the year gift for this teacher, why can't we get together and decide what we're going to do with our children, with their devices? What if they can continue chatting after 7, and sometimes they have homework. I mean, this isn't nuclear science. We've got to just remove the scary technology aspect out of it and get back to parenting.
Yes. Has anyone had any success with kind of effective parent campaigns? Anyone kind of nailed it on this issue?
Well, effective, it depends on your definition of effective, of course. I mean, I agree that creating channels for, you know, reaching out to parents is not always obvious. It depends on the country as well. Like in Spain, they ran a campaign recently on sexist stereotypes in video games, you know, and that had a very wide reach online and was very popular, and was about raising awareness also about the PEGI code and how to use it, and so that was a way in, if you like. But there are also plenty of resources out there available online, like UNAF France, Mon enfant et les écrans, so my child and screen time. So there are resources out there, but I think more broadly speaking, what we're advocating for is giving parents more time to care for their children, and caring also means educating your children depending on the age. I have a 9-year-old and a 13-year-old. It's completely different types of parenting. And, you know, for that means putting in place public policies on work-life balance, creating more family-supportive workplaces. So this is definitely more broader, but we have to look at the broader picture because, like you said, Elizabeth, I mean, these challenges are not going to go away. Even if regulatory frameworks are very helpful, they're never going to fundamentally keep up with the pace of innovation. So we need to be available. But if our work doesn't allow us to be fully available, we can't talk, we can't communicate, we can't find the space for that very important dialogue that we need to have continuously.
Oh, I just wanted to jump on what Elizabeth said about that time and that space. If there was one campaign that I have heard that has been effective, it was having dinner. For families just to have dinner again, you know, and to have those conversations. And we're laughing, but it's that simple. And to carve out that space where we're talking. I too, the mother of 2 boys, I know exactly what you're talking about here. And if we don't give them that space, you know, to share with us, and how was your day today? How was your online day today? We won't know. We will not know about looks maxing. I'm sure you've heard about this, Val, with boys. We won't know about, you know, Sephora kids, and our children will tell us, but we have to talk and then bring in our common sense, our culture, our values to kind of talk them off the ledge and ourselves.
You know, I think these are fantastic points, and I fully support it. I mean, even things like paternity leave. You know, I was lucky enough to have paternity leave for each of my boys, and you know, please don't say TikTok is advocating for paternity leave now. Like, I know how these things roll, but I can say personally, it was very important to me. At the same time, I think we also need those direct interventions. So it's really a holistic approach. And let me give you an example. You mentioned that parents don't know about these tools. That's right, they don't. So we need to actually sort of prompt them and nudge them. And you know, we do that through our app. But I was just in Istanbul last week where we were rolling out a campaign off app, so on TV, to tell parents about parental controls, because not all of them are on there. So we need to inform them. And that educational piece needs to supplement all of the wonderful things that you were just talking about. And if we don't have that holistic approach, it's really not going to work. Yeah.
You know, as data protection legislator, or regulator, I should say, we are not normally direct in contact with children and families, but we have organized things differently for now almost 10 years. Digital education has become a priority for our authority. I'm part of a small team, but it's dedicated to digital education. And the way we work is we develop partnerships with the Ministry of Education, for instance, to go into schools, to train pupils, students, also teachers. We develop training passes for them as well, because they use a lot of personal data. But we also go on the ground to meet people, teachers and parents as well. For instance, we were last week in Paris at the Festival of Digital Game. This was the third round, and we had a booth, and on Fridays, schools and families were coming, and on Saturday, it was families, you know. And we had, I should say, a great success with all the material we produce. We produce games, cards as well, posters, tunes as well. So different material, just like many other data protection authorities in the world, I should say. And this is a way also to discuss with families and to know, to be more aware of their knowledge, of their interest. We saw grandparents as well. So, but sometimes when we go, we organize meetings with schools, with parents. It happens. No parents come also in the evening. So that's part of the risk. But we train the teachers as well on that opportunity. But that's a long process. But it seems that parents are getting more and more aware of the risks and the dangers of sharing data consciously or unconsciously, and maybe have the opportunity to provide more examples of the risk or the challenges, I should say.
Yeah, so linking the online with the offline is really important, isn't it? And making it much more real-worldy, so that it doesn't become a tech job. Whenever I talk to parents, I always say, this is not a tech job, this is a parenting job. And this, sadly, is part of your parenting life now. I kind of hesitate in getting us into my next topic, which is about smartphone use for under 16s. And you will be aware that across Europe and the US, there's much debate about smartphone ownership of under 16s, primarily due to Jonathan Haidt's book. And he makes 4 recommendations, which are no smartphones before high school, no social media before 16, phone-free schools, which in the UK, we've already introduced that policy, although it was already a policy already, or for lots of schools anyway, and more real-world freedom for children and independence. And I was just interested in everybody's view about kind of smartphone ownership, use under the age of 16, and whether we thought that was appropriate, whether we agree with it. I was with my colleague David Wright recently, and we delivered some online safety live sessions all over the East Midlands, and we asked parents, what do you think, or the people that were attending. And in the inner cities, they were very, very pro banning under 16s, but when you got out into the more kind of rural areas, they weren't pro at all. But just interested in people's views around this hot topic. What do we think?
Well, I mean, I can come in briefly. To be honest, we haven't had this discussion in COFACE yet. I mean, it's with 23 countries. We'd have to build consensus, I think, for a proper position on this, to be honest. However, first reflections, yes, we're aware of debates in different countries about this. I wonder, however, how the children themselves feel about this. I think they would be the first to consult, just to be in line with the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And with that in mind, banning doesn't seem very child rights friendly. If you think of their right to access information, their right to freedom of expression, their right to be connected with their family when separated, and to connect with both parents or multiple parents or grandparents, it might be a better strategy to channel funds into schools to actually create spaces of learning on digital skills and digital citizenship. And just, yeah, I don't know, it seems quite a radical approach, but then you say it's already being implemented in the UK. It'd be interesting to see.
Banning in schools.
In schools, yeah.
I don't even know where to begin. I think it's great. And the reason why I think it's great, see, look at this, everybody's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe she said that, is because it's sparking conversation and debate. That's it. Because let's face it, a ban is not going to work. And as Elizabeth said, ask the children and they will tell you, show us how to use the devices better, or better yet, make the technology safer by design, so that way we really can use these smartphones and do what we need to do with them, which is connecting, educating, playing, yes, goofing around. But like I said, seeing that this has just caused a flurry of people on the left, on the right, in the center, everyone having an opinion. Personally, I find that great, because we do need to have this conversation. And it's better now than later when we start talking about AI and they start saying we have to ban AI, because going to these extremes is the only way for us to have a nuanced conversation, to get the research. And I think once, people are, I think of Professor Szobilski with, always saying we need the research. The research isn't showing that that it's having these effects, et cetera. Yeah, we know the research, we don't have longitudinal studies, it isn't showing everything yet, but as Professor Szobilski also said, if you hear a wolf howling and you don't have the research that the wolves are there, you're still gonna prepare for a wolf attack, right? So I think we need to use some common sense about this, and like I said, I could go on forever on this topic, but again, I'm just happy that that it's out there and that it's caused such visceral emotion.
Regarding your question, I don't know if you have heard in France about the Macron report. Yes, he appointed a committee of experts in January 2024 to assess the impact of young people's exposure to screen. So, and this committee presented its conclusion. We, as Data Protection Authority, we have had hearings, so we participated in and commenting the issue, the various aspects of the issue. And to make it brief, in this report, there are some good things, in our opinion, because they provide, they would like to promote autonomy, empowerment of children, and that's good, because you cannot have parents or teachers behind every teenager. But there are also some bans. So regarding by age groups, if I remember, under 6 under the age of 6, so no exposure at all at screens. Then before 11, no phones. This is part of the recommendations, you know. I'm not charged to deliver any message, but just to provide the background of this report and the findings. From 11, phones, but with no connection, no internet connection. From 13, phone connected with no access to social networks. And from 15, access, it's authorized with to ethical social networks. It's not defined what are, for the moment, ethical social networks. Yeah. And at schools, it's also recommended to strengthen the application of bans on phones in lower secondary schools and to introduce a kind of framework in upper secondary schools on the place and use of phones in the school environment. That's for this, the part of the recommendations. But there are also part of awareness-raising initiatives, programs to have families, adults more familiar with digital education, and also to support association, NGOs for supporting families and children. So you will have your own opinion on this, but it's a balance between bans and responsible practice for young people and also to support parents.
But Pascale, one of the
Yes.
things I find interesting about Macron and the recommendations is that this is based pretty much identically on Serge Tisserand, the child psychiatrist who wrote 36912,
Yes.
more than 12 years ago, so 36912, and he had all of these recommendations for looking at a child's development of what they could and should be able to do online. So I find it amazing that we're going back to the basics. And again, with what you were saying, Charlotte, about the bans, I mean, look at the Waldorf schools when we talk about these online, offline, where in the United States, parents are paying lots and lots of money to have their children go outside. No tech, no devices. So I think that we have to just look around at all these examples and kind of pull the best.
But you know, Serge Tisserand was one of the hundreds of people interviewed by this commission, and of course, this is also very reasonable approach.
Can I just ask Pascale, what's the kind of status of the commission? So they've done the initial report. What happens next?
This report requests for quite fast implementation. Okay. So it's supposed, but I think some measures can be easily implemented. Okay. But for others, you know, they need consultation also with the economic sector and also with all the chain of actors. But it's request to be quickly implemented.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we could probably have a whole conference on this one question. Obviously, we try to take in data and information from a variety of sources, but I also don't want to forget that a key stakeholder here, again, is families. And so ultimately, you know, I think families are going to need to make the decisions that work best for them while acknowledging information there. So in our family, for example, my 14-year-old's not allowed to take his phone upstairs. He has access to certain social media apps, but he has limits on those, and he's not allowed to take it upstairs. Our 12-year-old doesn't have any social media. He uses the phone to keep us apprised of his whereabouts when he's going to and from school, and the 9-year-old doesn't have a phone. So that's what works for us. Now, it might be different for another family. So how we've approached this at TikTok is, first of all, we've talked to lots and lots of experts, We have a lot of incredible people inside the company that have a lot of knowledge on this. And what we've tried to do is create some guardrails while acknowledging that families are going to do different things for them, for whatever works for their experience. We've tried to create some guardrails. So obviously the app is for 13 and above. But once you come on at 13, it doesn't mean it's open season. There's content levels that will restrict content that might not be age appropriate. There are a number of features put in place. For example, no direct messaging. Under 16, you can't go live if you're under 18, and so on and so forth. We have default screen time limits at 60 minutes. So there's a bunch of things put in place that are fairly industry leading and try to set some parameters around that. Again, families are going to have some flexibility to work within that, but we've put the barriers where we think it's best based on the many sources of information that we have.
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that we haven't really talked about, and you touched on this briefly, Elizabeth, is around children and what they want and their own rights of access and the sorts of things that they enjoy. Many parents are complicit in allowing their children to have a smartphone or access to social media, and they put sensible strategies in place, and they say you can only follow people that I say, or your sibling's going to keep an eye on you. I think there is a little bit of parent bashing that goes on around. I haven't met many parents that don't care about their children. There are some, but not many. Not many parents don't care about their children. But I was just wondering about, I know there's some slight differences in terms of the agency of children and their rights from the EU, UK, and the US. I know, parents in the US have much more kind of control and agency over their children's devices and their access. I was just wondering about your view around how we involve youth voice in this conversation and help them to kind of navigate the online world at the same time.
Yeah, no, I think it's a super question. Thank you, especially with my different hats as an American, also a French national, living in the UK. So it's just like seeing all these different aspects of it. And actually, I was just in Saudi Arabia 2 weeks ago at the Sync Summit, and I assure you, those parents there are facing the same issues that we are, and it's just it's across the board. This issue of parents' rights, of children's rights, it's just as you said about the parent bashing. All parents are trying to, do the right things for their children. And when we start talking about, these devices or banning them, or that parents are the only ones that have the right, they seem to kind of forget that their child, if they ban them, their child is just going to go look at their friends or go look at someone else's. So it really is not the way to go. We really have to have a more holistic approach. And as a family, I loved it that Val mentioned it, that our stakeholders are families. And, I challenge everyone. I'm looking out and I see so many friends and faces. I see Liz and new Stephanie and Stephen and Ian and David and Lisa and just and Laura and so many of us. And it's just, why can't we get together and really do something to help the families, in the US, in Europe, and beyond? Because let's not forget that 96% of the harms that are reported are from research in the US and the UK and a few European countries. There's a whole nother world out there of children online, and we are completely forgetting about them. And I'm not even going to start talking about race and diversity and LGBTQI+, and my niece has Down syndrome, and there's just so much, diversity and things that we have to do. Really, that's my call out, is that we have to get it together for the children and their rights.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm going to get off my soapbox now.
So, no, it's great to, I think we do need to really pay attention to what teens have to tell us. So we heard that feedback a while back from our safety advisory councils, who kept emphasizing, please, 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 incorporate youth voice, as you said, listen to them, and so we did, which is always fun when you can do that, and we set up a youth council. And setting up a youth council was really interesting, because right around the time when we were putting it together, we also commissioned some research that determined that 4 out of 5 teens, A, don't feel heard by online platforms, and B, would like opportunities to be heard. Yeah. So they want that. Yeah. our experts are telling us. So we leaned in and we started this. And in December, we launched a youth council with 15 youth, age 14 to 18. They're from around the world, exactly because of the reasons you just mentioned. So we have Kenya and Indonesia and Mexico and so on. I mean, it's 15, so we can't get everybody yet, but we have a pretty diverse group. And we've started meeting bi-monthly, and it's awesome. It is awesome. They are, I'll tell you, I told this to my colleagues. After we had the first meeting, you know, sometimes with children, you're like, oof, this is going to be a tough generation. Then I met with the youth council, and I was like, we're going to be fine. These kids are amazing. They are really amazing. They are just so insightful. And when you ask them a question that you ask an adult, you get a very different answer. Yeah. And we have just had such a valuable time talking with them and getting their insights on these issues that have been so complicated. Our product teams love coming to the meetings to get, why do you block and not report? Yeah. Like, tell us about that. What's going on there? Like, what's that? They care a lot about misinformation. They want things to be authentic. You know, it's so fascinating getting these whole perspectives. So, big fan of listening to youth. I think we are all in on this. We think it's extremely valuable to have this experience. And I think it's something that can really inform our work on trust and safety going forward. So very, very supportive of that.
Insider information. My son is on the youth council, and I confirm what Val is saying, and that it's. I mean, they just absolutely love it. But this is the whole idea of the safety by design, digital well-being by design. If you're asking the youth about the features and what they want, they will tell you. Yeah. And no, Val, I had nothing to do with anything that my son wrote to you. I really did not.
Yeah, I think on a micro level, on the family level, well, in COFACE we say family is teamwork. Family is teamwork, and in fact, that comes more from a gender equality perspective, because the reality in Europe, at least, is that it's very much women caring still. Men are not really involved enough for various reasons. So we have a very much a gender equality approach to family. But therefore also a two-generation, multi-generation approach to family. So really it's about working together also with the generations, and like you said, there's so much learning from the kids today, even below 10, below the tweens even. It's incredible how much knowledge and opinions they have to share. On a more macro level, in terms of partnerships, we're a family organisation, so we're not a child rights organisation. We don't claim to represent children's voices, but we partner a lot with organisations that are fantastic at bringing the children's voice. And in fact, Better Internet for Kids Youth, I don't know if you know them, but look them up. They're fantastic. They've really helped us bring the youth voice, I'd say 14 plus, into our work on digitalisation. And like you said, it's invaluable. You know, sometimes even things like going back to basics. How do you use a search engine? I mean, why would they know that? You know, so it's, so on the one hand, they know a lot, but on the other hand, we need to remember that as they enter the digital environment, they also need the very basics, And who is giving them that? Who is giving them that? The families are, because at least in schools, in many schools in Europe, there's not this kind of digital citizenship education, which is really unacceptable if you think about it. So.
Just your 2-minute warning that I'm going to come to you for questions in a minute. Pascale.
Yeah, thank you. Regarding our national experience, we organize focus groups with children and also with parents. You know, when we develop a new resource, this is, of course, part of the process, and we want to make sure what the level of understanding of the pupils of the children and also of the parents, and we test the material. We have a sociologist also at the CNIL, so he also carries out some surveys on the ground regarding teenagers, and also to develop really adapted materials because things evolve quickly, and the statements we made a few years ago regarding the level of maturity and of capacity to protect themselves by children and by teenagers is evolving, and rather in the good sense, I should say, regarding the latest surveys we have published very recently.
Yes, thank you, thank you. Thank you. I'm going to come back to the panel at the very end for just their 3 pieces of advice to parents, so pre-warning you, panel. Do we have any questions in the audience for our panel? Yes.
Hello, thank you very much for hosting us. It's a very pleasant moment with you, even if the subject is very hard and, and profound. My name is Cyril Di Palma, and I run an NGO in France that I created 20 years ago, and we carry out education sessions in schools. And I've got 2 questions, 2 reactions. I wanted to react on 2 figures about a survey we conduct every year. 1/3 of the pupils we ask report having a digital device in their room at all times, and 1/3 choose the duration and the times of their connection. What would be your reaction, please?
Just a tiny bit of a sigh, yeah. Yeah, that's kind of a lot, right? And I think that that just means we need to have a conversation. And without even knowing what they're doing, that's my first question, you know, and what type of quantity and quality, and let's not just let the numbers freak us out, but it does sound like a lot. And I didn't ask you the ages of the children.
13 to 18.
Ah.
It was a survey conducted on more than 8,000 pupils.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it sounds a lot, but again, I'm going to say context.
Yeah, and it sounds quite representative of what you see in other countries as well. So it's not specific to France. It's a reality. What to do with that? Well, I think it's also learning to, well, trust the children a bit more. But that goes obviously through real talking and not superficial, but having the tough conversations, not necessarily on digitalization, but on sexuality, on gaming, on all these tough parenting challenges. So yeah, interesting figures. Thanks for sharing.
Any more questions? Yes.
Hi, good morning. Laetitia Avia, digital policy expert and former member of the French Parliament. So, as you said, there is a lot of parenting bashing, and last week the French president said that we should now focus on educating parents because they are facing a lot of things that they don't master when it comes to the digital space. So we can't ask them to help the kids if they are the most vulnerable to everything that they are facing, even phishing. So my question is, what do you think is the best moment to educate parents so then they can educate their kids and make it very compulsory so we're sure that it's not only people coming to these conferences and they are very sensitive to this subject, but every single parent?
Thank you. Good question. Yes.
Yeah, I already have some ideas on this one because this is something that I tried to do when I lived here in France, actually. As soon as a mother is pregnant, here in France, you get a little box of a blue box with all sorts of wonderful things in there. And I tried to create a sort of maternity kit. And I actually wrote a guide for newborns for the Ministry of Qatar, talking about just being aware already, about posting those ultrasounds, about your child's right to privacy, about oversharing. It starts as soon as someone knows that they're pregnant, in my opinion. And it goes, and not just to 18, let's really be realistic, up to 23, 24, when we're talking about neuroplasticity of a brain. We have to keep parenting, and by that I mean keep loving and educating these children in all things.
Yeah, absolutely. We get a red book in the UK.
I have another example, you know, to answer your question. We are experimenting a new approach, meeting parents on their workplace. And so this is within the framework of partners, of a group of stakeholders. So we are invited as CNIL to deliver some messages at parents during lunchtime, you know, and this is a way to create more synergy and to discuss with families in relation to these topics. And so this is another example.
Great, thank you. We have time for one more question. Yeah.
Hi, Andrea Evans-Billum from the Internet Commission. My eldest son is 24, interestingly enough, so maybe he's baked now, who knows. I've been listening, fascinated. I've been a very engaged parent from a digital responsibility perspective with my boys. My youngest is now 18. What I've noticed is that the trust that they have in the digital space is diminishing and diminishing over time. And I think part of it is because of what they have seen. And part of it, I wonder, is because of my overzealous parenting, where I've asked them to question everything they see. My eldest now believes nothing he sees online. The trust has completely gone. And his interaction in the online world seems to be shopping and not much else. I'm just wondering if, in terms of how we build trust, there is an issue there potentially as our children become adults in how they feel about the digital space and how they engage with it.
Thank you. How do we build trust?
I mean, if anybody has some ideas on that, I would take them. Trust building is really hard, but you know, I think, as is probably true in most of these spaces, the answers are always going to be nuanced. It's very hard to have a black and white answer on these things. So at the same time that there can be misinformation online, there can also be incredible authenticity where young people find a connection that they never could find in their school or among other people, their peers. And we've seen that over and over again on our platform. I think it's a place that celebrated that and continues to celebrate that. So when we talked to our youth council, that was the part that they really wanted more of. And finding that balance between how do we control for misinformation, but also, you know, provide a place where people can connect and learn new things and open their eyes to diversity and new experiences. That's really our goal. And so again, I'm just emphasizing that I don't think it's an all or nothing in any of these scenarios, but it takes a lot of vigilance and a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of collaboration between our company and other companies and the parents and the stakeholders out there. That's maybe not a very satisfying answer, but I believe it to be the correct one.
Thank you, Val. Just before we finish, I'm just going to ask each of our panelists to give their kind of top 3 parenting tips to help children stay safe online. Val, I'm going to start with you. I'm sorry, I'll start the other end this time. Top 3 tips.
Well, I mean, I started off by emphasizing, and I'll circle back to 2 points at least. That is, one is I think that parents need to lean into this a little bit. And I say that delicately because everybody gets a little bit edgy when you start asking parents to hold some responsibility here. But as a father, I think I have to be proactive on this. I think that that's my responsibility. And so learning about the places where your teens are going, learning about the tools and how it works. If my kid wants to play Fortnite, I'm going to go on there and see what that's all about, right? So I think that the first thing is leaning in. And there are lots of features on these platforms that can be used, but if you don't know about them, you know, you can't use it. The second thing then is pay attention to the information that we're trying to share. We're pinging everyone who joins now, who's over 35, everyone who goes on TikTok, we're pinging about Family Parent. Okay. just to let them know that it's there. Now, will that save the day on its own? Definitely not. But if we can keep sort of touching base with parents, I think we're going to do this as a collaborative fashion. So again, it's a team effort, as I think somebody said earlier. I think that was a genius statement, and I'll stand by that one.
As regulator, you know, I have to provide one, at least, advice to parents. Give parents a better understanding of the risks which your children are exposed online, because this is, we have complaint department at CNIL, so we see a lot of situations with coming from parents as well. The second thing would be take care of the practice of known as sharenting. It means coming from parents, having parents sharing photos of their children in the bath or in a swimming costume being delivered without any protection. And of course, this is very risky for their children, for their future, for their digital print as well. And ask your children also if they agree to share with you, to share photographs online, even with family.
Really quickly, before I heard the woman speak from the Internet Commission, I would have said my standard critical thinking, communication, continued conversations. But after hearing her comments, it really has just struck me. You know, because this is the same way that I parent my children as well. And I think I would just make a call out and say, act up, you know, act up. Let's question.
Yeah, and I would just add to that on a family level, active listening. So not listening, but active listening. Try and talk, yes, but listen and try to understand, and better maybe figure out if there are changes in your children and their usual habits or their moods, or so that would be one thing. And the other thing is the resources are out there. There are loads, and they're all in different languages across Europe as well. And if you know, we as a family organisation, we channel that to families obviously quite naturally. But if you're not sure, go to a family organisation or peer support organisation in your community and ask. You know, be proactive. Of course, it's a shared responsibility between men and women, or in same-sex families, between both parents. If you're in a single-parent family, then that's where peer support networks, non-profits are fundamental. But really, it's like you said, it's teamwork, and it's got to be teamwork.
I'd like to say thank you to our panel. I think we have a clear call to action, which is us as a collective getting this information out there and making it really, really visible for parents. I'd like to thank our panel. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Thank you. Thank you.